Now, as if the Queen didn't have enough on her plate, she's already dealing with the fallout of the news that Prince Harry and Meghan will be losing their patronages in this country. And now she also has to navigate the tricky path of broadcasting her own message on the same day that Harry's tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey appears. Well, as ever, there's a lot to unpack here, isn't there? So let's return to Rebecca English. And Rebecca, how do you think Harry and Meghan are feeling about losing these titles?
Well, when we say titles, I think we should probably be clear. It's not HRHs or the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. It's actually the patronages that they have, the kind of organisations and charities they support in the UK. But the answer is not very happy at all. They really haven't been able to understand from the start of this. They genuinely thought, for whatever reason, they could go to the US and pursue commercial careers, but keep links in the UK and keep working for the Queen and the British monarchy. And they just haven't been able to understand the Queen's point is that you just can't do that. You cannot be able to pursue millions in the US and have public lives in the UK. It just doesn't work like that. So, apparently one of the quotes has been used is that they hit the roof when they found out that the Queen was very firm about this. It was not going to be able to happen.
And what do you think the mood is in the palace? Do you think the Queen is actually really angry about all of these developments?
It's not anger, it's more frustration. As I said, when Harry and Meghan said, this is what we want to do, and the Queen made very, very clear from the start, public service is very different from philanthropy, and you cannot pursue millions of dollars in the US and have public lives in the UK. The two are just unworkable. What they are angry about, Joe, though, is the statement that they put out in response to the Queen's very measured statement last week. Look, this is the situation. I'm very sad personally, but it's the way it's got to be. And this really kind of almost slightly spiteful comment from them that they could still continue, public service is public service and you could do it regardless. And there's a lot of people, including members of the royal family, who privately feel quite angry about this. They feel it was intensely disrespectful to the Queen, who's 94 and has given a lifetime of public service. So that's where the anger is, not so much in the decision they've made, it's the way they've gone about it.
Do you think that, as you say, spiky statements like that are being authored by them or their advisors in the US?
Oh, it's by them. I mean, they, even when they were UK, there was nothing that was uttered on their behalf that wasn't uttered by themselves privately. So it is coming from them. And I think people feel quite hurt as a result about this. Harry was born and brought up in the royal family. He has a great deal of respect for his grandmother. So why come out with statements like that? And if he did it accidentally and couldn't see it was going to be interpreted like that, why not? You've got a team of PR experts, and Harry has intense, personal experience of how the royal family works. So I think people are just pretty confused and hurt and a bit angry about that.
I'm afraid I take an extremely dim view. I think it was incredibly arrogant and rude of them to say what they said to the Queen. I mean, you can't say to a woman who's had 68 years of service to her country when you've done about sort of 6 months. That you understand the meaning of service. I mean, that is just unbelievable arrogance. And I think part of the problem is that Harry is just incredibly thick. I mean, basically, he in the real world, he'd be lucky to be an estate agent in Fulham. I mean, I just don't think he understands what he's doing. I mean, I mean, that's the only explanation I can think of, unless they're deliberately trying to insult this woman. I mean, Rebecca says very correctly, I'm sure, that he has a lot of respect for his grandmother. I'm not seeing any respect at all. I'm just seeing a sort of petulant teenager who's cross because he can't have his own way, is stamping his feet and just sort of basically slamming the door and flicking his hair. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think a lot of members of the public think that too. When I wrote a piece basically saying this, and I've never had so many emails, people are really quite upset at his behaviour. And it doesn't take a genius or a great legal mind or whatever to understand that if you are basically saying, we want our privacy, this is Cersei, by the way, and then also saying, but we're going to do a tell-all thing for Oprah. I mean, the two things are completely contradictory. I mean, it's not that they don't want people to know what they're doing or they don't want to share details of their lives. They just want to do it on their own terms. And more importantly, they want to do it for money. And that's just incompatible with being a member of the royal family.
Do you think that this development opens a whole other can of political worms? Will there be lobbying from different factions of the royal family for these now available patronages?
I mean, definitely not. I mean, you know, they don't lobby for stuff like this. These patronages, and this is a really important point. They've been able to keep private patronages, but what the Queen has said is anything handed down by her, by virtue of being members of the royal family, has got to come back to the royal family. So they are very much in her gift. I mean, if a member of the royal family thinks they've got a particular skill set that could work, I mean, Prince Edward's name has been thrown out there, you know, in line with the National Theatre, because obviously he had a career in the theatre at one point. Princess Anne is a passionate sailor, so she's considered, you know, possibly something that might work with those naval patronages. So they will try to marry people up with the right skill set, but lobbying is just not something they will do. And of course, they've all got a lot of organisations and patronages they already support. There's quite a lot of demands on their time as it is.
Richard, we've been hearing a lot today about Harry's anger. It seeped through in that statement. Sarah feels that he's been a bit of a stroppy teenager about this whole issue for some time now. Do you think, if he is angry about losing these patronages, do you think that that will be evidenced in the Oprah interview?
I do have a terrible sense of trepidation really about this interview, because I know for a fact that Harry was angry before about the idea that he would be stripped, particularly of his military roles, and he thought he had very good grounds for keeping them. He'd cited other members of the royal family by name, mentioned the Queen's cousin, Prince Michael, who was able to keep royal military patronages despite not being a full-time active member of the royal family, and that was before. So now, having had them stripped, yeah, I think he will be particularly angry, and I'm very much expecting that to come through in this interview. I mean, CBS has made clear that the bulk of the interview will be with Meghan, and then, you know, Harry will appear later on, but everyone's kind of concentrating on, oh, what's Meghan going to say? You know, is she going to say this? Is she going to say that? Well, I think it might be what Prince Harry has to say, which is the really controversial part.
It must be clear to Harry and Meghan that their appeal is a depreciating asset. The further they get from the royal family, the less and less interesting they become. I mean, if you fast forward 5 years, they're just going to be another celebrity couple, you know. And so I think important for them, you know, the importance of them keeping patronages and keeping material links with the crown is also a financial consideration, you know, because the closer they are to the British monarchy, the more value they have commercially. It's as simple as that. And I'm afraid that's what I think they're up to. Their behaviour tells me nothing else at the moment.